The drifting warrior, the silent void commander Vextar, pressed his clawed hands against the cold metal walls of his escape pod as it tumbled slowly through the endless darkness of space. The proud Kithran warrior had been drifting for 6 days, now watching the distant stars mock him with their unreachable light. His mighty battlecruiser, the Dominator's Edge, was nothing more than scattered debris behind him, destroyed in a reactor explosion that had claimed the lives of his entire crew. The emergency pod systems hummed weakly around him, each sound a reminder of his diminishing chances of survival. The air recyclers wheezed with mechanical exhaustion, and the temperature controls flickered between functional and failure. Vextar's reptilian features, marked by the ritual scars of a seasoned commander, remained stoic despite his desperate situation. His golden eyes, adapted for the harsh red light of his homeworld, stared into the void with the dignity expected of a Kithran officer, the warrior's pride. In the depths of his mind, Vextar wrestled with a decision that went against every fiber of his being. The escape pod's emergency beacon sat before him, its activation switch glowing softly in the dim light. One simple press would broadcast his location across the galaxy, potentially saving his life. But to activate it would mean admitting weakness, calling for help from strangers who might be enemies of the Kethran Empire. The Kethran way was clear, strength above all else. Their civilization had been built on the conquest of weaker species, the domination of entire star systems through superior military might. A true Kethran warrior would rather die with honor than beg for assistance from unknown aliens. Vextar had spent his entire adult life believing in this code, rising through the ranks by demonstrating his ability to crush opposition and expand the Empire's territory. Yet as the hours passed and his life support systems continued to fail, doubt began to creep into his thoughts. Was there truly honor in dying alone in the darkness when he might still serve the Empire? His tactical mind, trained through decades of military service, began to argue with his warrior's pride. Perhaps survival itself was a form of strength. The human discovery. 300,000 kilometers away, the United Earth ship Discovery moved through space on a routine scientific mission. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, reviewing stellar cartography reports with her science officer, Dr. Marcus Webb. The Discovery wasn't a warship, but an exploration vessel, part of humanity's ongoing effort to map unknown regions of the galaxy and search for signs of intelligent life. "Captain," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications station, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. "I'm detecting a very faint signal on the long-range sensors. It's intermittent, almost like it's coming from damaged equipment." Chen turned from her reports, her dark eyes focusing on the young officer. "What kind of signal?" "It's not broadcasting continuously, but the pattern suggests it might be some kind of emergency beacon. The frequency is unlike anything in our database, is definitely not human origin." Dr. Webb approached the communications console, his scientific curiosity immediately piqued. "An alien distress signal? We've theorized about this possibility for years, but to actually encounter one." He began analyzing the data streaming across his tablet. The signal is very weak, suggesting either great distance or failing power systems. Commander Lisa Park, the ship's first officer, joined the discussion with characteristic caution. "Captain, we need to consider the risks. An unknown alien signal could be anything from a genuine distress call to a trap designed to lure unsuspecting vessels." The decision to help Captain Chen studied the data for several long moments, weighing the potential dangers against the possibility of saving a life. At 42, she had spent her entire career in deep space exploration, driven by humanity's innate curiosity about the universe beyond Earth. She had joined Starfleet not for military glory, but for the chance to push the boundaries of human knowledge and perhaps one day make contact with other intelligent species. "Dr. Webb, what's your assessment of the signal's authenticity?" she asked. The science officer adjusted his glasses as he reviewed the readings. "The power fluctuations and signal degradation are consistent with failing emergency equipment. If this is a deception, it's an incredibly sophisticated one. My professional opinion is that someone is genuinely in distress." Chen nodded slowly. The decision ultimately came down to a fundamental question about human nature. When faced with the unknown, would they respond with fear or compassion? Throughout Earth's history, humanity's greatest achievements had come from choosing courage over caution, from extending hands to strangers rather than clenching them into fists. "Plot a course for the signal source," she ordered. "Maximum sustainable speed. If someone is dying out there, they don't have time for us to debate the philosophy of first contact." The rescue operation, the Discovery, dropped out of faster than light. Travel at the edge of what appeared to be a debris field. The remains of an alien vessel floated in the vacuum, twisted metal and crystalline components that suggested technology far different from human engineering. In the center of the wreckage, sensors detected a small craft that matched the source of the distress signal. "Life signs?" Chen asked as her crew worked to analyze the alien vessel. "Confirmed," replied Dr. Webb. "One life form, but the readings are unlike anything in our xenobiology databases. The life support systems in that craft are failing rapidly." Vextar, meanwhile, had finally detected the approaching vessel through his pod's failing sensors. The alien ship was unlike anything in Kethran records, sleek and elegant rather than the angular, weapon-heavy designs favored by his people. Fear and hope warred in his chest as he watched the unknown craft approach. Were these scavengers come to loot his ship's remains, or potential saviors? The human ship's tractor beam locked onto his escape pod with surprising gentleness, drawing him slowly into what appeared to be a shuttle bay. As the massive doors closed behind him and breathable atmosphere was pumped into the chamber, Vextar prepared himself for whatever came next. His training told him to expect interrogation, torture, or immediate execution. These were the fates that awaited enemies of the Kethran Empire. First contact, the humans who entered the shuttle bay moved with careful, deliberate steps. They wore no battle armor, carried no visible weapons, and their body language suggested caution rather than aggression. Captain Chen led the small group, her medical officer Dr. Elena Vasquez close behind with scanning equipment. Vextar's first sight of humans filled him with confusion. These beings were smaller than Kethrans, with soft features and no natural weapons. Their skin lacked the protective scales of his people, and their eyes held an expression he had rarely seen in his own species: genuine concern for a stranger's welfare. Through the pod's damaged viewport, he watched as the humans worked to safely extract him from his failing craft. They used cutting tools to carefully open the damaged hatch, moving slowly to avoid startling him. When they finally succeeded in creating an opening, Dr. Vasquez approached with her hands visible and empty. "Easy," she said in a calm voice, though Vextar could not yet understand her words. "We are here to help." The alien warrior attempted to stand but collapsed back into his seat, weakened by days of poor nutrition and failing life support. The humans immediately moved to assist him, their actions gentle despite his imposing size. They transferred him to a medical gurney, with the care typically reserved for honored allies, not unknown potential enemies. Medical mysteries and cultural confusion in the ship's medical bay. Dr. Vasquez began the challenging task of treating a patient whose biology was completely unknown to human medicine. Her scanners revealed that Vextar's internal organs were arranged differently from humans, but the basic functions appeared similar enough to attempt treatment. He's suffering from dehydration, malnutrition, and what appears to be radiation poisoning from his ship's reactor explosion, she reported to Captain Chen. "I'm going to have to improvise most of the treatment protocols." Vextar lay on the medical table, watching these strange aliens work to save his life. Their behavior continued to confuse him. In Kethran society, medical treatment was reserved for those who could pay for it or who held high rank. These humans had no reason to help him, yet they worked with dedication and care. Dr. Vasquez noticed her patient's alert, intelligent gaze and attempted to communicate. She began with simple gestures, pointing to herself and saying, "Elena," then pointing to him with a questioning expression. Understanding her intent, Vextar responded with his own name, though the harsh consonants of the Kethran language were difficult for human ears to process. Over the following hours, as the medical team worked to stabilize his condition, Vextar, observed the humans' behavior with growing amazement. They consulted with each other respectfully, sharing knowledge and expertise without regard for hierarchy. When junior crew members made suggestions, their opinions were considered seriously by senior officers. This collaborative approach was completely foreign to Kethran military culture, where orders flowed downward and questions were seen as challenges to authority. The seed of change, as the first day of his recovery came to an end, Vextar found himself facing uncomfortable questions about everything he had been taught to believe. These humans had risked their own safety to rescue him, a complete stranger from an unknown species. They had provided medical care without demanding payment or allegiance. They treated him with dignity despite his helpless condition. Most disturbing of all, they seemed genuinely interested in learning about him as an individual, rather than as a source of military intelligence. Dr. Webb had spent hours attempting to establish basic communication, showing patience and respect that would have been unthinkable between enemies in Kethran space. The warrior's mind, trained to think in terms of conquest and domination, struggled to process this new paradigm. Perhaps there were other ways to interact with strangers besides violence and subjugation. Perhaps strength could be found in cooperation, rather than domination. As sleep finally claimed him in the safety of the human medical bay, Vextar's dreams were filled not with the glory of battle, but with images of beings working together toward common goals. The seed of transformation had been planted, though he did not yet understand how completely it would change his understanding of the universe. The first part of his journey from warrior to ally had begun, though greater challenges and revelations lay ahead in the days to come. Understanding and transformation learning to communicate 3 weeks had passed since Vextar's rescue, and the alien warrior had grown strong enough to move freely about the ship. The humans had provided him with quarters near the medical bay, a comfortable space that was larger than necessary and decorated with images of peaceful Earth landscapes. The gesture of providing pleasant surroundings for their rescued enemy continued to puzzle him, as did their patient efforts to establish meaningful communication. Dr. Webb had become his primary language instructor, spending hours each day working, with translation software that gradually built a bridge between their species. The linguistic barriers were significant. Kethran communication relied heavily on subtle changes in vocal tone and body posture that were difficult for humans to detect, while human facial expressions and gestures carried meanings that were initially incomprehensible to Vextar. "Your people," Vextar managed to say during one of their sessions, his words heavily accented but increasingly clear. "Why do you help me? I am not your kind." Dr. Webb smiled, an expression that Vextar had learned indicated pleasure or amusement, rather than aggression. "That's exactly why we help you. You're not our kind, which makes you fascinating. Every species in the universe has something to teach us, something unique to offer." This concept was revolutionary to the Kethran mindset. In his culture, differences were threats to be eliminated or weaknesses to be exploited. The idea that diversity could be valuable, that strangers might be sources of knowledge rather than targets for conquest, challenged everything he had been taught about interspecies relations. Cultural exchange. Captain Chen had made a point of including Vextar in daily ship operations whenever possible. She believed that understanding came through shared experience rather than formal instruction, and she wanted her crew to see the alien warrior as an individual rather than a potential threat. During these interactions, Vextar observed human behavior with the analytical mind of a military strategist. He watched crew members from different departments work together on complex problems, sharing expertise freely and building on each other's ideas. He saw senior officers ask for advice from junior personnel and witnessed mistakes being treated as learning opportunities rather than failures worthy of punishment. "In your military," he asked Commander Park during one of their conversations, "what happens to soldiers who fail in their duties?" Park considered the question carefully. "It depends on the nature of the failure. If someone makes an honest mistake, we help them learn from it. If someone is negligent or refuses to follow orders, there are consequences. But our goal is always to help people become better, not to destroy them for being imperfect." This approach was incomprehensible to Vextar. Kethran military doctrine held that failure was weakness, and weakness was disease that had to be cut out before it could spread. Officers who failed were demoted, imprisoned, or executed, depending on the severity of their mistakes. The concept of helping someone recover from failure suggested a strength that his people had never recognized. The philosophy of strength, Dr. Vasquez had become another regular visitor to Vexitar's quarters, curious about the physical and psychological differences between their species. During one of their discussions, she asked about the ritual scars that marked his face and arms. These represent victories in battle, he explained, tracing the carefully carved patterns with one clawed finger. Each mark shows an enemy defeated, a world conquered for the Empire. They are proof of my strength as a warrior. The human doctor nodded thoughtfully. On Earth we have people who choose to mark their bodies as well. But usually it's to remember loved ones, important moments in their lives, or beliefs they hold dear. We mark ourselves to remember love, not violence. Vextar struggled to understand this concept. But how do others know of your strength if you do not display your victories? Maybe we have a different definition of strength, Vasquez replied. We think strength is protecting others, helping them grow, building something that lasts. A warrior who conquers planets shows one kind of power, but a doctor who saves lives, a teacher who inspires students, a parent who raises children with love. These people show strength too. The test of character. The philosophical discussions might have remained academic if not for an unexpected crisis that tested everyone's true nature. The Discovery was conducting a routine survey of a gas giant's moons when their sensors detected multiple ships approaching at high speed. The vessels were clearly hostile, their configurations matching those of known pirate fleets that preyed on isolated exploration ships. Red alert, Captain Chen announced, as the bridge crew prepared for potential combat. All hands to battle stations. Vextar was in his quarters when the alarm sounded, but he immediately understood the situation. His warrior instincts, dormant during weeks of peaceful recovery, surged back to life. He had been observing human behavior for long enough to recognize their strengths and weaknesses in combat situations. The pirates demanded the surrender of the exploration vessel, threatening to destroy it if their demands were not met. They were clearly confident in their superior numbers and firepower, expecting easy victory over what they assumed was a defenseless science ship. Captain, Commander Park reported from the tactical station, we're outnumbered 4-1. Our defensive systems are adequate, but we're not equipped for prolonged combat against multiple attackers. Chen weighed her options carefully. The Discovery could attempt to flee, but the pirate ships were faster and would likely overtake them before. They could jump to faster than light travel. They could try to negotiate, but pirates rarely honored agreements with victims who had nothing to offer. An unexpected alliance. Vextar appeared on the bridge without invitation, his large frame moving with the fluid grace of a trained warrior. The human crew tensed slightly at his presence, uncertain of his intentions during this crisis. Captain Chen, he said, his English now clear enough for effective communication. I request permission to assist in your ship's defense. Chen turned to face him, surprise evident in her expression. You want to help us fight? Your people saved my life when you had no obligation to do so. You have treated me with honor and respect despite being strangers. In Kethran culture, this creates a debt that can only be repaid through action. The captain glanced at her senior officers, reading the mix of hope and concern in their faces. Commander Park spoke first. What can you offer that we don't already have? Vexitar moved to the tactical display, his experienced eyes quickly analyzing the enemy formation. I have fought pirates before. They rely on fear and overwhelming force, but they are not disciplined soldiers. They will break if you can eliminate their lead ship quickly and make them believe the cost of victory is too high. He began outlining a strategy that used the human's superior technology and his knowledge of pirate tactics. The plan was bold and risky, requiring precise timing and coordination between crew members who had never worked with an alien before. Battle and brotherhood. The engagement that followed was unlike anything in Vextar's military experience. Instead of the rigid hierarchy and predetermined battle plans of Kethran warfare, the humans fought with flexible adaptation and collaborative decision-making. Officers at every level contributed ideas and adjustments to the strategy, creating a dynamic response that confused and frustrated their enemies. Vextar found himself working alongside Lieutenant Torres at the communications station, using his knowledge of pirate communication codes to intercept and decode enemy transmissions. His insights allowed the humans to anticipate their attackers' movements and respond with devastating effectiveness. When the battle was over and the surviving pirate ships had fled, the bridge crew erupted in celebration. But what struck Vextar most powerfully was not their victory, but their immediate concern for casualties and damage assessment. Even in triumph, their first thoughts were for the welfare of their crew, rather than glory or conquest. Captain Chen approached him as the crew worked to secure the ship. "Thank you," she said simply. "Your help made the difference between victory and defeat." Vextar looked around the bridge at the humans who had accepted him as an ally, despite every reason to distrust him. These beings had shown him a form of strength he had never imagined, the power that came from unity, compassion, and shared purpose. The transformation, complete. In the days that followed the battle, Vextar found himself changed in ways that went beyond mere gratitude. The humans had not only saved his life but had shown him a different way of existing in the universe. Their strength came not from dominating others but from lifting them up, not from destroying enemies but from creating allies. When Captain Chen offered to transport him to the nearest neutral station where he could find passage back to Kethran space, Vextar surprised everyone with his response. "I would like to request asylum," he said during a formal meeting with the senior staff. "I wish to renounce my allegiance to the Kethran Empire and apply for citizenship in your United Earth Alliance." The request sent shockwaves through both the ship's crew and Earth's diplomatic corps. Never before had a member of the warrior caste of a hostile alien empire sought to join human civilization. "Why?" Chen asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Vextar chose his words carefully, drawing on weeks of philosophical discussions and observed behavior. "Because you have shown me that true strength lies not in conquest but in cooperation, not in destroying the weak, but in helping them become strong. My people believe that might makes right, but you have proven that right makes might." A new beginning. The bureaucratic process of granting asylum to an alien refugee was complex and unprecedented, requiring months of security reviews and diplomatic negotiations. But throughout the process, Vextar remained aboard the Discovery, continuing to serve as both a bridge between species and a symbol of transformation. He began working with Dr. Webb on a comprehensive study of Kethran culture and technology, providing insights that would prove invaluable for future diplomatic contact. More importantly, he started writing a detailed account of his experiences with humanity, hoping that someday his words might reach other Kethran warriors and show them that there was an alternative to endless conquest. The scarred warrior who had once conquered worlds in the name of imperial glory had become something entirely new, a guardian of peace, a protector of the innocent, and a living example of humanity's greatest strength: their ability to transform enemies into friends through simple acts of kindness and respect. As the Discovery continued its mission of exploration and discovery, Vextar stood on the observation deck, watching the stars that had once been markers of territory to be conquered. Now they represented infinite possibilities for cooperation, understanding, and shared growth among the countless species that called the galaxy home. The transformation was complete. The warrior had become a peacemaker, and in doing so, had discovered that true strength lay not in the scars of battle, but in the bonds of friendship forged across the vast distances between worlds.